Hello, my name is Rebecca Thomas. In Mario Draghi's final policy meeting as European Central Bank President, and after an 8-year term, he continued to approach the current situation of low growth and low inflation expectations as a problem to be solved. In echoes of his previous whatever it takes policy statement, he reminded European leaders that growth and modest inflation are key priorities. He deployed strategies to back up his words. What is being proposed by the ECB? Quantitative easing is back. Starting in November, printing more money gets underway. The government will begin buying back bonds at the rate of 20 billion a month. Interest rates paid to banks depositing excess reserves for the ECB, currently negative at 0.4%, have been cut to 0.5%. This in turn forces banks to lend, underpinning economic activity. The main Eurozone interest rate remains at 0%. Critics say that negative rates are now part of the problem. They believe the bang you get for your buck is waning, with zero and now negative interest rates hindering income generation. Academics also discuss the possibility that ultra-low rates are becoming a source of uncertainty, sending a negative message. What next? The task of ensuring the smooth running of Eurozone economy is being handed to the new incoming president of the ECB, Ms. Lagarde. She takes up her post in November and inherits the reintroduction of the controversial monetary measure known as QE. She will also note the call to action by Mr. Draghi to European governments in charge of the fiscal spending. He has urged them to do more to help. Ms. Lagarde must now steer a tricky path. She will have to engage with governments about the stimulatory fiscal measures while simultaneously defending aggressive monetary policy measures disliked by hawks of the ECB. Hawks worry that QE and negative interest rates are a policy misstep representing a form of moral hazard. German financiers have fears of hyperinflation embedded in their DNA. Stories such as the price of a loaf of bread in 1935 being equivalent to an entire stock of money in 1928, and prices doubling in a matter of hours persist. Other central banks are about to meet. The Bank of England and the Federal Reserve are convening next week under the same pressure to ease conditions against a backdrop of Brexit uncertainty and trade tensions. Both continue to be headwinds for economic growth. Policymakers are loath to allow the current economic style to grind to a halt. After 10 years of lowering interest rates, we may, however, be reaching a point of diminishing returns, where the positive effect of further monetary policy action in its current form may be limited. Households should already be incentivized to spend rather than save. Economic growth and ultimately inflation should follow, but adequate inflation currently remains elusive, particularly within Europe. Compounding this, ongoing US-China trade tensions are having a negative effect on European manufacturing, with recent figures pointing to a faltering economic growth. Clearly, low interest rates are not doing enough to stimulate the adequate aggregate demand, and underlying causes of slowing growth seem to require a different response. Luckily, policymakers have other tools within their grasp. Momentum seems to be building behind the prospect of governments harnessing the power of fiscal policy as an alternative. In other words, cutting taxes and increasing government spending to stimulate demand. Fiscal Trump's tax cuts last year are an example of a strong fiscal response, and China is currently promoting a package of fiscal measures helping to promote growth. But economies known for their traditional fiscal discipline, best typified by Germany, have been reluctant to join this bandwagon. They are paragons of fiscal restraint and long-time advocates of balanced government budgets. Is this changing? This week, the German Finance Minister Oskar Scholz declared that the German government could counter an economic crisis with many billions of euros, should an economic downturn occur. Note that this is reactive rather than proactive. Taken at face value, the comment starkly contrasts with Germany's draconian enforcement, rigid budget discipline. Governments are now able to borrow at interest rates just above or below 0%, which is a bit of a game changer. Conditions are ripe for such an outlay which could help lengthen the present economic cycle. It is often said that economic cycles don't die of old age, rather they expire as a result of policy missteps. A case of doing too little or too much. Getting it just right is challenging. Currently, the judgment by the ECB is that they are doing whatever it takes. They sense governments are doing too little. A big enough fiscal stimulus could put the negative yields back into positive territory. Whether government spending can be deployed in a targeted and effective manner is another matter. We will have to wait to see what transpires in the next relation to growth and inflation expectations, both of which need to rise. Thank you for watching.